It was an innings more than 10 years in the making, Ayaz, and Sanju Samson takes India into the semi-final with a near-perfect 50 ball 97. Now, we've talked a lot about Sanju on this show, and heading into the World Cup, it seemed like he was one of India's preferred openers before Ishan Kishan's form happened, and Sanju kind of went by into the side. But then to come back from that situation and to play such an innings takes a lot of mental fortitude, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. And it's been a roller coaster ride for him. There have been highs, there have been lows. In fact, he had hit a trough. To lose your place in the World Cup during the playing of the tournament can be a severe setback, certainly mentally. And I think Sanju was quite open and candid about what he went through, the turmoil, and he's come back, I think, better and stronger. And but for his knock, India would have perhaps struggled even more than they did to reach the semi-final. But it was a sublime knock, as you mentioned, Anirudh. Just about everything that he did went right. I think what the most significant thing which he mentioned after the match was that he didn't, he adjusted his game because this time they were chasing runs. Earlier he's had this tendency of getting off to a flying start and then throwing it away. Because as he mentioned, when you're batting first, you're looking to post an imposing score. Here you were chasing a big score. Not an imposing score, but a big score. And you kept losing wickets. And therefore, somebody had to stay till the end. And he chose to be that person and played quite superbly. I think this marks, in my opinion, or could mark or should mark a turning point in his career. Remember, he's not a spring chicken. He's 31 years old. He's had a fairly long career. In a sense, he's a veteran. But he's a veteran who's always been on the margins, always on test. I think that uncertainty about his caliber should end completely after this knock.
Yeah, well said. But then, apart from Samson, as you mentioned, India do seem to have certain problems that are persisting, which is Abhishek Sharma made one of his slowest innings, I think 10 of 11. Varun Chakravarti didn't seem as threatening, although after the first over, we felt like he was back, but then he did end up going for around 40. And then India dropped 3 crucial catches in the match, which fielding has been a problem throughout. So, overall, still some holes, right?
Yes, I think the two standout performers for India were Jasprit Bumrah. His 2 wickets in 1 over and the 12th over just completely changed the complexion of the game at that point in time. The West Indies were beginning to cut loose. And even 15-20 runs more could have been very, very difficult to get, I would imagine. So Jasprit Bumrah and Sanju Samson were the standout performers. Abhishek Sharma, I think, he needs to take a leaf out of Sanju Samson's book now, I think. We've had a fairly long run and said, okay, he's a prodigious striker of the ball and therefore don't impose, don't shackle him. But if it's not working, it's not working. Then you have to look at doing something different or doing the same things differently. And I think Varun Chakravarti, perhaps, much like Abhishek Sharma, I think opposition's coaches or the opponents themselves are sorting out how to keep these players in check. Whether it's Abhishek Sharma from striking those big blows or Varun Chakravarti getting baffling the batsman. So this is bound to happen over a period of time. Now, India need to ensure that in the remaining, hopefully, 2 matches that they've got, it doesn't affect them adversely because you need both these players. I can't see their places being traded unless in the semi-final, one of them or both of them have really poor matches. So, yeah, that's something now the coach and the captain have to think about, how to boost these 2 players who are match winners without doubt to give off their best in the crucible when they're in the crucible in the playing arena.
Yeah, and lastly, as you mentioned, India now head to the Wankhede to play England in the semi-final, and South Africa take on New Zealand at the Eden Gardens, whom they've already beaten. So, do you think India go in as favourites? Do you think we see another India-South Africa final?
Well, I think India would go in as favourites for the fact of playing at home and the fact that they've actually come back into good form, having suffered a setback against South Africa earlier. But England have, actually been the team which has improved a lot with every match from the league stage. And I think they've got in Harry Brook, a wonderful player who is coming to terms or to grips with his captaincy also. Will Jacks is emerging as perhaps the player of the tournament, the manner in which he's been bowling and batting. So, and remember, Joss Butler hasn't got going at all in this World Cup. So, if the law of averages favors him, then India will have a real fight on their hands in the Wankhede. But as I mentioned, playing at home, playing at the Wankhede strip, and I think England still look to me a little wobbly in their batting, but it's how a team performs on that day. So India can't afford to drop their guard even a wee bit.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, India, both the semi-finals coming up, and we'll come back to you after both of those. So that's it for this episode of Sports Room. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Anirudh. We'll catch up soon.